Broken presentation is now underway. That will be happening in just a few minutes.
Aryna Sabalenka just walked straight into a nightmare she didn't see coming. The tennis powerhouse suddenly finds herself tangled in serious charges involving dirty tactics and unethical conduct that have the FBI surrounding. Screenshots are spreading. Accusations are multiplying and tennis officials can't ignore this anymore. What began as rumors about dubious behavior on the court has grown into a major controversy that might ruin everything Sabalenka established. The question everyone's asking isn't whether she crossed a line. It's whether she can survive what comes next. This is what I'd like to know. Do you believe that elite athletes get away with actions that would result in suspension for anyone else? Let's rewind to where this disaster actually began. Because nobody wakes up one morning and decides to destroy their entire career over a tennis match. It took some time for this scenario to blow out. It developed quietly and slowly in that perilous area between hubris and confidence where champions occasionally get lost. Aryna Sabalenka has spent years cultivating her reputation as one of the most feared competitors in women's tennis. Strength, mental toughness, and a level of energy that made opponents uneasy even before they took the floor. She was doing more than just winning games. She was dominating them. Using ground strokes that left opponents reeling and serves that sounded like gunfire, you crushed dreams. Her ascension to the top felt inevitable, even natural, like watching a force of nature occupy its rightful place. The problem with staying at the top, though, is this. It makes you paranoid. Every young player suddenly looks like a threat. Every upset feels personal. Every setback seems to be the start of the end. And when you've built your entire identity around being the most terrifying player in the room, you start doing whatever it takes to retain that image. Enter Eala, the Filipino phenom who wasn't supposed to be a problem this early. Before challenging the status quo, she was expected to learn, grow, and pay her dues for a few years. Except nobody sent Eala that memo. She surged through tournaments with the kind of fearless fire that makes veterans uneasy. There was no doubt, no respect for reputation, simply the unwavering conviction that she was one of the finest. And that conviction, that's what rattled folks like Sabalenka. The tension between them didn't start with dramatic confrontations or public feuds. It began with minor details that fans observed but were unable to fully articulate. A handshake that was too brief by 0.5 seconds. A press conference answer that felt colder than necessary, body language that screamed discomfort anytime Eala's name came up. Nothing overt enough to draw attention, but enough to raise questions about if something more profound was going on. Then their match, the one that would alter everything, came. The atmosphere felt weird from the time they walked on court. Sabalenka approached with that familiar stone-faced focus, jaw clenched, shoulders stiff, looking like she was preparing for battle rather than a tennis match. With a carefree smile and a youthful enthusiasm, Eala bounced in, eager to show that she belonged. The contrast was stark, almost difficult to witness. The first set played out normally enough. Power versus precision. Hunger versus experience. Two completely different styles colliding. But something shifted in the second set. Something that would subsequently lead to charges, inquiries, and a public relations disaster that Sabalenka's team is still trying to quell. Sabalenka started stretching her preserve routine, bouncing the ball 15, 16, 17 times, walking to her towel slowly, deliberately, making Eala wait. At first, it appeared to be typical gameplay, the kind of rhythm disruption experienced players employ to confuse new players. However, it continued to get worse. The intervals lengthened. It got chilly on the stairs. The timing felt too calculated to be coincidental. Then came the mid-rally moment that caused social media to go into overdrive. Sabalenka grunted in a way that seemed out of step with the play. Not during her own shot, but immediately as Eala was about to make contact. A split-second disturbance that could have been accidental. Except it happened again 2 points later. And once again, Eala's body language changed immediately. Confusion, annoyance, the unmistakable tightness of someone trying to stay composed while feeling deliberately unsettled. Eala finally raised her hand to the chair umpire. It was a non-aggressive, non-dramatic gesture that conveyed the idea that something wasn't quite right. The crowd began to mutter as the umpire nodded and gave a gentle warning about the speed of play. When cameras captured Sabalenka's response, that murmur grew into something more. A quick, subtle, yet unmistakable smirk in slow-motion replay. "I know exactly what I'm doing" is the type of expression. At that point, the game shifted from being about tennis to something much more repulsive. Social media didn't wait for formal declarations or inquiries. Within minutes, clips were circulating with captions like "dirty tactics" and "unsportsmanlike behavior." Tennis fans, Filipino supporters, casual viewers, everybody had an opinion, and the majority of them were negative regarding Sabalenka. One angle showed the delayed serve. Another captured the mistimed groan. A third froze on the sneer that would come to represent the dispute. However, the narrative takes a darker turn at this point. The change that resulted in FBI accusations. Because there was audio hidden in all those widely shared videos that supporters think captured something much worse than gamesmanship. A courtside microphone apparently caught up Sabalenka muttering something beneath her breath during a changeover. Eala was the target of something that unsettlingly sounded like a racist insult. The audio quality was awful, distorted, ambiguous, and susceptible to misinterpretation. But internet audiences don't wait for clarity. They decide based on context and emotion. Additionally, individuals filled in the blanks with the worst possible meaning because of everything else that occurred throughout that match. All of a sudden, this was more than merely dubious strategies. This was about potential hate speech from one of the sport's greatest figures. The similarities to Coco Gauff began practically right away. Fans began sifting through past footage, looking for patterns, trying for proof that Sabalenka had a history of treating opponents of color differently. After losing to Gauff, they discovered a tight handshake. Sabalenka became contemptuous when questioned about up-and-coming Asian and black athletes during a press conference. Moments that appeared harmless at the time but suddenly appeared suspicious due to public indignation. Whether any of this was actual evidence of racial bias didn't matter. The story had developed, solidified, and proliferated more quickly than any formal investigation could keep up. Hashtags took off. Hashtag Stand with Eala trended in various countries. Despite being founded on accusations rather than verified facts, Investigate Sabalenka acquired popularity. Tennis officials made ambiguous claims about looking for possible sportsmanship infractions on the film, carefully avoiding specifics yet doing nothing to calm the tempest. And then came the FBI angle, the assertion that moved this from sports issue to perspective F. Sabalenka's alleged remarks, alleging they were hate speech that went beyond the law. Nobody was confident whether the FBI was genuinely looking into this complaint, whether it had any legal validity, or whether any of this would lead to charges. But the mere possibility that federal officials might get involved sent shockwaves through the tennis world. Sabalenka's squad moved into crisis mode. Radio silence from her social media. No press conferences. Nothing more than a succinct, lawyered response that was meaningless. The goal of that quiet was to stop more harm. Instead, made her look guilty in the court of public opinion. Because people assume the worst when you are accused of something so serious and you remain silent. Eala, meanwhile, managed the circumstance with incredible poise. She shared a single, straightforward message. Respect is part of the game. I hope we all remember that. 8 words that convey both everything and nothing. Acknowledging the controversy without feeding it. Preserving her dignity while refusing to confront her accuser. The response made Sabalenka's quiet look even worse by comparison. The opinions of former players were divided between those advocating for accountability and those defending competitive intensity. Every frame of the game was analyzed by commentators. Legal experts discussed whether alleged on-court remarks could actually result in federal charges. For weeks, the story dominated tennis news, overshadowing rankings, tournaments, and all other tennis-related events. What made this situation extremely toxic was the convergence of numerous factors. Unsportsmanlike behavior contra gamesmanship. Respect for young stars versus veteran privilege. Racial dynamics in a sport with a large white population. The ability of social media to convict before any official investigation concludes. Every aspect fueled a fire that didn't appear to be going out. Sabalenka eventually returned to competition. However, she was unique. Careful restraint had taken the place of the swagger. Her preservation routines became substantially shorter. The fierce stare-down softened. No one could determine with certainty whether this was intentional image rehabilitation or real change, but anyone who paid attention could see the change. The FBI investigation, if it ever genuinely existed beyond internet rumor, never resulted in public charges. Tennis authorities reviewed the film, gave generic statements about sportsmanship expectations, and quietly ended the matter without specific findings or penalties. However, the harm had already been done. Sabalenka's reputation had taken a hit that no amount of wins could completely heal. Eala, on the other hand, gained more credibility after the issue. Among younger players, her ability to remain composed under duress became legendary. Her refusal to engage in mudslinging while still standing up for herself became a lesson in handling adversity. Not only did she make it through the ordeal, but she also used it as a platform to raise her fame over what any tournament win could have accomplished. The really interesting aspect came months later when patterns started forming and how matches involving Sabalenka were officiated. Umpires seemed more attentive to tempo of play breaches. Time infractions were called more strictly. Whether this represented actual bias against her or just heightened awareness from officials worried about another issue. As a result, Sabalenka found herself performing under greater scrutiny than in the past. Some supporters believed she deserved it. Felt the controversy revealed character faults that needed addressing. Others said she was being unfairly singled out and that her career was being defined by a single poor match. The reality, as usual, probably lived somewhere in the complicated middle where human beings make mistakes, face repercussions, and hopefully learn from them. There is no denying that the episode altered discussions regarding professional tennis behavior. The debate between crossing borders and gamesmanship became increasingly complex. Questions concerning racial dynamics in the sport shifted from whispered observations to open discourse. The power of social media to shape narratives and demand accountability became impossible to ignore. For Sabalenka, winning games was not enough to move further. Rebuilding trust needed proving that the behavior in that match was an exception rather than a pattern through deeds rather than words. She would never be forgiven by certain people. Their minds made up the moment those clips went viral. Most would watch and wait, allowing time and behavior dictate their judgment, while others would give her the benefit of the doubt since they believed in redemption and second chances. Whether genuine or not, the purported FBI inquiry was more significant than a single player's legal issues. It represented a change in society where athletes' actions on the court are scrutinized in ways that earlier generations were not. Stars could no longer act however they pleased with little repercussion. Replaced by a time where public responsibility arrived quickly. This story illustrates that in modern sports, your reputation can crumble faster than you can recover it. Sabalenka discovered the hard way that, in the absence of respect, intensity breeds foes rather than legends. Eala showed us that elegance under adversity speaks louder than any response. Public opinion creates the story that accompanies you forever, but the court will always be the ultimate arbiter. If you found this breakdown valuable, press that like button and subscribe so you never miss the controversy everyone's talking.